Report, the Sunday Roundup, and joining me tonight is Nick Bryant, author of the Franklin Scandle. And Nick, before the break, you were talking about Mr. Vincent, who was involved in this escort service.
He was a mortician who started this escort service, and the worst day of his life, he will tell you, is the day that Craig Spence called him and wanted an escort. And Craig Spence spent $20,000 a month on his escorts. But little did Vincent know he'd made a Faustian pact when he started providing escorts to Spence.
Right.
And then after Spence was either killed or murdered, Vincent was taken down, and the feds used a RICO indictment on him.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and here's a 26-year-old kid that's running an escort service. I mean, he's from West Virginia. I mean, it was kind of an interesting little creative plan that he concocted. But anyway, he certainly wasn't a big-time RICO criminal. So they came after him with a 43 count RICO indictment, and he was looking at over 300 years in prison.
Right.
And the assistant U.S. attorney, because he said, you guys come after me, but I've got some interesting tales to tell, because Spence and King had let him in on everything, or not everything, but they told him quite a bit. I mean, he knew about the pedophile network and who was involved in it, and et cetera, et cetera. So, but the assistant U.S. attorney put a memo in with the court saying that Vincent should be sentenced above the guidelines, so that he should, because he had theoretically perpetrated HIV. So Vincent was looking at over 300 years now. Mm-hmm. And the feds came to him and said, well, Henry, if you talk, we're going to put you away for the rest of your life. But if you keep your mouth shut, we'll only give you 6 years. Right. So he took the deal.
Right. So
So with him keeping his mouth shut and his top lieutenants keeping their mouth shut and Spence dying, and then the grand jury and the phony grand jury in D.C., that was essentially the cover-up in Washington, D.C.
Right. Now, Lawrence King, he also went to jail, but he eventually was freed. And last I heard, I had somebody reported to me that he's out there in Fairfax County, Virginia, selling cars these days. But he did do his jail time, and so
he did time for embezzling $40 million. But according to both state and federal law enforcement, he never abused a single child.
Right. So they got him for embezzlement, but not the the overriding crime of being involved in this pedophilia ring. It's a fascinating story. It's an awful story. It's a terrible story, and unfortunately, it's one that continues up until a few years ago with the whole Mark Foley case. And
then recently, you've got all those people in the Pentagon looking at child porn, and very few of them are
even at the National Security Agency. Yeah. So it continues, and nothing is done. And I just have to think that the involvement of the CIA and these other intelligence agencies and the FBI is clearly the 800-pound gorilla in the room here. That no one is trying to break these apart. Now, we have these cases where they get these online people. Just the other day, they rounded up a ring, an international ring, but that almost looks like it's more window dressing. They're getting the customers, but not the people who are running the show.
Well, they're getting guys that live in trailers and stuff like that. They're not getting. And then actually, there were very few people arrested, considering that 70,000 people were supposedly looking at this site. So,
right.
This is an area where our society is very backwards.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for coming on, Nick Bryant.
Thanks, Wayne.
The Franklin Scandle, available from Prime Day, Amazon. I urge everyone to read it. And thanks for coming on, Nick Bryant. And we will be right back after this break.